Welcome to tonight's episode of Beyond Focus TV. I'm your host, Lydia Patel, and as always, I have a very exciting guest for you. I have Chef Kate Adamick, who's the co-founder of Cook for America and the author of Lunch Money. She'll be with me for the next 30 minutes, so stay with us. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. Beyond Focus TV allows you to discuss contemporary topics affecting the Caribbean people on both a national and local level. The show features informed guests who offer insight, debate, and evaluate various issues. Beyond Focus TV builds on the station's mission to provide useful information to the Caribbean people in New York and abroad. Beyond Focus TV, where our viewing audience can get educated, informed, and empowered.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Miles, and I am Miss Caribbean United States 2013, and you're watching Beyond Focus TV.
Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and like I said, I have a very special guest for you, and you're definitely going to enjoy the wealth of information that she's going to be bringing to the table, no pun intended. Chef Kate Adamick, who is the co-founder of Cook for America and the author of Lunch Money. We'll be getting into this book in just a little bit. But Chef Kate, welcome to Beyond Focus TV.
It's a pleasure to be here, Lydia. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule. This lady flies over, what, 200,000 miles a year, you were saying?
Almost. Yeah.
Within the United States. She didn't even leave the country. She stayed within the country. So you could say you've pretty much been everywhere, right?
Yes. We work all over the country.
That is fantastic. Why don't you give us a little bit of your personal background? I know off camera we're talking that, you know, you actually had another career before becoming a chef.
I did. I started out as a lawyer, and I was pretty disillusioned by always being on what I thought was the wrong side of the issue. And I really wanted to help people and make them happy. So I went to culinary school and became a chef. And it's amazing how happy you can make people when you feed them a plate of good food.
Absolutely. One of the things, you know, they consider one of the basics food, shelter, and clothing, but food's at the top. And usually people are very when they're happy and they're fed, it brings a smile to their face.
It does, yes.
I was reading a post on Facebook that actually said the person you're with should make you feel like when you're at a restaurant and you see your plate coming out, you know, that look that you have when you see the waiter bring your food, because there's that instant glow. Everybody has that little
gleeful anticipation.
Of anticipation in their eyes. So how does that make you feel to actually cook for people and create at the same time?
It's wonderful because you're using both sides of your brain. You have to be highly organized, and at the same time, as you mentioned, it's very creative. And on top of that, when you're done and you produce something that's beautiful and it's delicious and it's healthy and makes people smile, but it's not like macrame, it doesn't hang on your wall forever. So you get to wipe the slate clean and start over again.
You do start over all over again. How did cooking become your choice of career path? You know, you go through that life change, you decide that, you know what, this isn't quite for me. How did you really fine-tune that to cooking?
I think when I was in high school in the 70s and I was good in school, I liked to study. And so I became a lawyer because nobody in my family had even gone beyond high school before that. And I had the opportunity to keep going, and I kept going. And when I reached my goal and I wasn't really pleased with it, I started to think about what made me happy. And what made me really happy was cooking. And so then I went to culinary school, and the rest is history.
That's how that came about. Why don't you talk about Cooking for America?
Cook for America is a social enterprise that our mission is really to help curb the childhood obesity crisis in America by teaching the school cafeteria workers how to cook healthy, whole foods from scratch, and to do it in a delicious way, to do it within the time and the money that they have available to them.
That is fantastic. Now, give us a little bit of statistics, because for those at home, we all know that we all see it. The obesity rates have been increasingly rising. Even if I look back in my school days and be like, well, you could kind of point out a handful of the larger children. Now it's like half the class.
Yeah, and unfortunately, 1 in 3 to 1 in 2 of Black American children will acquire type 2 diabetes in their lifetimes. When I was a kid, and you know, I'm 52, so when I was a kid, there was no such thing as type 2 diabetes. It was called adult onset. It was called old people sugar, because you got it, if you got it at all, when you were elderly. And now we have children as young as kindergarten coming into school. And you know, we know that the second really horrifying statistic is that our children today will live shorter lifetimes than their parents because of diet-related illness. So we know that obesity is related to cancer, it's related to diabetes, as we've been discussing, to heart attacks and to strokes, 4 of the 6 top killers of Americans.
So we need you in our schools. This is definitely needed. And you said that you do a teaching. You go into the schools and you actually teach the lunch workers how to prepare these meals. So that's the entire concept behind this. That's the premise.
That is. We don't call them lunch ladies like most people do. We call them lunch teachers because we want them and everyone else to recognize that children don't stop learning just because they're in the cafeteria.
Very good.
And we want the lunch teachers to understand not only their responsibility but their opportunity to teach these kids what real food is and how to feed themselves in a healthful manner for the rest of their lives. Having said that, we're really clear that we don't talk to kids and say, eat this, it's good for you. We say, eat this, it's good. We don't want it to be something, another project for kids, like, oh, do your nutrition. You know, we want them to think about how wonderful real food is.
So what's an example of a menu when you go into one of these schools and you sit down with the lunch teachers who become, at the time when they're with you, they're students themselves, learning these meals. Give us an example of what's crafted for a particular healthy meal for a 3rd grade student.
Well, we don't teach recipes and menus per se. What we teach is culinary skills.
Right.
So when we go through it, and how we do this is we have week-long lunch teacher culinary boot camps.
Yes.
And we call them boot camps because there are no umbrella drinks. This is not summer vacation. This is a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun. And they go from often having no knowledge of how to cook from scratch, or they have knowledge for how to cook from scratch for their families at home, or maybe the family picnic during the summer, but not for hundreds or thousands of children with maybe not as much equipment as they think they need in their kitchens at schools. We teach them basic cooking techniques that you will learn in a professional culinary school. So how to saute, how to braise, how to roast, how to stew. Those techniques, then they can adapt to whatever recipes they'd like. One of the things we emphasize is that they can save a lot of money by cooking raw chicken, for example, and cooking raw pork and raw beef and raw turkey, rather than sending it to a processor to turn it into chicken nuggets and pork dippers and beef dunkers and all of those other things that we're used to seeing in high schools.
Very, very good, actually. And how does that, from a nutrition standpoint, does that save calories? Does that cut down on a lot of the other health stuff that we don't need to be eating?
Yes, what it does is it puts in the hands of the lunch teachers the opportunity to control the fat, sugar, and salt that they're using in their cooking. What we don't see when we're using processed food is how much fat is really in there, how much sugar is really in there, how much salt is really in there. And those 3 things, when they're in any combination of 2, and especially when they're all 3 in a food, will really take our children and turn them into junk food addicts.
Really, but hold that thought, because when we come back after the break, I want to go into that childhood addicts of food and sugar and sodas and all those terrible things that we're all guilty of ingesting. So stay with us right here. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, sitting here with Chef Kate, doing a wonderful job schooling us on the entire system that's in, officially how many states would you say this is in right now?
We've worked in one capacity or another in 24 states and the District of Columbia.
So literally half the country.
Not every school in all of those states, but yes, we've started.
Absolutely. You've made a good headway getting there and doing that. And we left off in the last segment about creating food addicts. And as much as our former mayor had his ways, he was onto something with the sugar the large size drinks and stuff like that. There was a little bit of truth to it, maybe not the right direction and way of going about it, but the facts were there.
Absolutely. I think one of the reasons we don't, as Americans, understand how much sugar we're ingesting when we're eating processed food is because on the labels on our food, on our processed food, it talks about grams of sugar. And we don't use the metric system in the United States. And the average American doesn't know what a gram of sugar is. When I ask people, I'll get responses. Sometimes they'll say, is that like a grain of sugar? Well, 4 grams of sugar is a teaspoon. So when you're reading a label and you see it has 32 grams of sugar, that's 8 teaspoons of sugar. And so when you take a drink from a normal size, what when I was a kid was an 8-ounce portion and then became a 12-ounce portion and now is a 16 or 32 or even larger,
20,
64.
Yeah.
You can actually calculate the amount of sugar just by taking the grams and dividing by 4, and that's how many teaspoons.
That's insane when you think about it, because the average can of Coke has 40 grams of sugar.
So there you go, 10
so
teaspoons.
That's 10, 8 to 10, that's 10
teaspoons.
10, so that's 10.
Yes,
good
exactly.
porkings.
And I'm glad you did that, because how many parents, and we know that parents' primary concern in life is the well-being of their children. How many parents would invite them into the kitchen and say, here, honey, I want you to have this sugar, and then proceed to put 6 or 8 or 10 or more teaspoons of sugar.
You usually try to stop them by the third one. Hey, what are you doing?
Yes.
Which would be a third of that amount, technically, and it wouldn't be as sweet. So creating those food addicts, so is there a system in your teaching that we could essentially say we could try to reduce this, make them less addicted, get their taste buds onto creating and eating real food again? Yeah,
well, I think before the show, you and I were talking about how wonderful the tomatoes have been this summer, right? And you don't need to do anything. Sprinkle a little salt on there. Even without the salt, they're still delicious. And I think that that's what we see when we teach lunch teachers how to cook real food, and they start to cook real food. It smells wonderful. It doesn't smell processed. It doesn't smell like a fast food restaurant anymore. It smells like Grandma's kitchen. Yeah. And immediately the kids and the secretaries and the teachers and everybody else come running in to the cafeteria. What smells so good? What are you cooking? So immediately you have their interest piqued. And when they taste the food, it has real flavor. It all tastes unique. It all tastes delicious. That doesn't mean that every child is going to like everything. We know from study after study that it takes a child, any child, 10 to 20 times to see a new food before they will actually eat it and say that they enjoy it.
Really? I didn't know that.
That's correct. And so that's part of their learning process. And rather than being impatient with them, I mean, if we get that impatient with them when they're trying to learn math or reading or anything else, they'll never learn anything. And we have to remember that this is part of their learning process. They might look at it and say, ick. They might shove it around with their fork. They may pick it up with their fork and fling it at their little brother. That's part of their learning process, and we just have to accept that it's going to take a while for them to enjoy it. But what we find in reality is it doesn't tend to take as long as we expect it to. We tell schools it may take a year. Sometimes it doesn't even take a month. Sometimes it takes 6 weeks, 6 months.
Absolutely.
But it's just, it depends on the children. It depends on the adults' behavior. If the adults in the school say, they're making us feed this to you now and have a negative attitude, or you have to eat this because it's good for you, then the kids will not respond as favorably as if you say, this is delicious, I made this for you. I made this for my grandson and he loved it, or my grandma made this for me when I was a little girl and I loved it. Let me know what you think.
How has the response been? Do you teach the psychology of this as well? Do you
We do.
suggest?
We do.
Just as you mentioned, don't pitch it in a negative way.
We definitely do. We have a whole class on social marketing and how to send your message to change their behavior in a positive way. We talk about framing, which is what does your audience care about and how do we talk to them about that. We teach this in our boot camps. We teach them, we don't have to teach them, they know. Our students, our lunch teachers know that what children really want is love and attention. And so when they come through that cafeteria line and you treat them special, and you take Mr. Yuck, as we call him, the kid who's always complaining about everything, and you meet him at the door before he gets through the line, with a clipboard and you say, can you please make a check mark when everybody else comes in the room because I can't, I'm too busy to keep track today. Thank you for helping me. That child feels special. And then when you give that child a new food and you say, honey, I made this for you, will you please try it? That child's not going to be so quick to say yuck because he doesn't want to hurt your feelings.
That's a very good psychology. That's a good method to it. Let's talk about lunch money.
Okay.
This is your book. You completed it just about 2 years ago.
Yes.
Love, love, love the cover. It's so creative because the fact that you're talking about lunch money, it's an eating utensil, a little bit of pennies on there. There's a lot going on this. There's a lot of message in that, which actually Chef Kate created herself.
Thank you.
So talk about the book. Let's go into that.
The book, I wrote the book after years of nagging by some foundations in the country because the biggest myth, one of the biggest myths in school food reform is that there's not enough money to pay for it. We could serve better food if the federal government gave us more money, or if we had a bigger budget, or if we had more money. And so the book goes through various opportunities for school cafeterias to find money that's either being wasted in the current operations or to take in money that isn't currently being received by the district that they could collect from the federal government.
Very good.
So, for example, one of the great examples is that dried beans are 6 to 8 or 9 in some places cents less per serving than canned beans, and really no more work. And so instead of having to drain all of those beans and open all of those cans, which nobody likes to do, you simply soak them the night before and cook them the day of service. That's a lot of money, 6 to 8 or 9 cents a serving. Over the course of a year, especially if you're serving beans 2 or 3 times a week, that adds up very quickly.
It does.
Using beans rather than meat as the protein a couple times a week also will save tremendous amounts of money because meat is more expensive than beans. It's also healthier and a good source of calcium, which comes into play when you don't serve chocolate milk anymore because it has about 3 additional teaspoons of sugar in it than the white milk. And it also tends to cost more than the white milk.
It still tastes better though.
So once in a while, absolutely. But every day, twice a day, can be 5 to 10 pounds of additional sugar in a child's diet just in the school year.
That is so interesting. Let's hold that thought. We'll be right back. We've got Chef Kate Adamick right here with me on Beyond Focus TV. I'm loving this segment, guys. Stay with us.
My name is Stephanie Miles, and I am Miss Caribbean United States 2013, and you're watching Beyond Focus TV.
Welcome back. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. I'm Lydia Patel, and we're sitting down here with Chef Kate Adamick, who's a visionary creator and doing some really great things for the education system in terms of feeding our children better, wholesome meals. And in a nutshell, do you love your job? I know you love your job.
I do love my job. I love it because as we've been discussing, one of the main things we do is teach school food service workers, whom we call lunch teachers, how to cook from scratch. And when we get them at the beginning of our week-long boot camps, we get 2 reactions. Either fear, because they haven't been in school often for decades, or resentment, because they're supposed to be on summer vacation and their boss said they have to come to boot camp. By Monday evening, they're so excited to come back. And it's wonderful to see them, just to see them learning. It's a wonderful experience for me.
And eager to get in there and start cooking.
That's right, and they do, and they learn how to use their knives like they have a Food Network TV show. So
working like pros. So how does the system get funded? I know it's not a 501c3.
Right, we're not a nonprofit organization, and the reason, and that was by design, because nonprofits in this state have to have independent boards of directors, and if you've ever been on the board of directors of a nonprofit organization, their primary concern is fundraising. And so we decided we didn't want that because we will not take money from the food and beverage industry or the pharmaceutical companies. And because we are afraid they may be complicit in the childhood obesity crisis. And so in order to not change our message when we're talking about how the food system really operates and who the players are and how they influence our government, we won't take the money. So we work on a consulting basis for foundations around the country.
And that makes it's twofold to that. I love it because you stay so true to your message that you won't, in layman terms, sell out.
That's
just
correct. That's correct.
I
would do something else before I would sell out. This is too important. We're talking about our children's health and their lives, and I will not sell out.
And that's really good. Now, we said before you're in 24 states, essentially, that you worked in. Just name a few of those so everyone would know.
So the states where we've worked the most, I think, are Colorado and California, Washington State, and we just started this year a 3-year project in Ohio, Kentucky, and part of Indiana.
So a lot of groundwork, and something that baffles me that Chef Kate and I were speaking a little bit off camera is that it's actually not here in New York. New York resident, living here, doing everything kind of based out of here, but the New York State children would not be able to benefit from this.
Not so far. We'd love to be in New York City. My co-founder, Chef Andrea Martin, and I both live in New York City. She lives in Brooklyn. I live in Manhattan. So we would love to work with the New York City public school system.
And this is making absolutely no sense to me. Do you think they know? They must know what you do.
They do. Yes, they know what we do. They do.
I'm so lost for words right now because our school system here does need this.
I think every school system needs this. As I mentioned before, if we're to control childhood obesity and the fatal health consequences of childhood obesity, we have to control what's in our children's food. And the only way to do that is to cook from scratch. So we know every single ingredient and can actually measure the ingredients that our children are consuming. And so I think every school district needs to go back to the way our grandparents, and in my case, my parents, and even I, when I was a small child, ate school food. It was cooked from scratch. It's not impossible. It's done over and over, and we can fix this.
That's great. Why don't you take a moment to really connect with everybody at home?
Yeah, I think I'd like to say to the parents out there that this is the most important thing you can do for your children, is to take care of their health and their lives. You know that already. I think what happens with school food, and maybe education in general, is we forget that the government employees work for us. We're the taxpayers, they are our employees. And so it's up to parents to demand, not to ask, not to request, but to demand that their kids be fed in a healthful manner. It can be done. Parents need to stop accepting the response from the government that, oh, it won't work here, it's going to cost too much money, it's going to take too long. This has been going on for 10 years now, and there are solutions to every problem. And so to have our government employees tell us they can't solve the problem is not acceptable when we're talking about our children's lives.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you, because there's really no reason why this can't be here, especially when I think we're up there with one of the biggest states. We rank in the obesity levels of
especially in New York City.
We do.
Yes.
So this is an epidemic. I think this definitely needs to be addressed. What's next for the agenda for you?
We're going to keep doing what we're doing. There are some talks about possibly being in Vermont next year, New Jersey. We would love to be in New York City also. We will be back, as I said, we'll be back in the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana area. We're working with a great foundation there. And we'll probably be back in Washington State again and Southern California.
A lot of traveling.
That's next. A lot of traveling, yes.
Definitely a lot of traveling. If you want to keep up with Chef Kate, you could definitely, I know you're on all forms of social media, from the website, you've got your Facebook, your Twitter. Why don't you let everyone know what that is? So
our Facebook page is www.cookforamerica.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at Cook for America. And we also have a Facebook page, and that is www.facebook.com/lunch.teachers.
Okay, so www.cookforamerica.com. On Twitter, it's at Cook for America, and facebook.com/lunch.teachers.
Yes.
All right, so very good. You have a very well-rounded gamut of social media. Have you gotten any responses directly on these pages from either students or parents themselves who've reached out and sent you messages just thanking you?
Oh yeah, we get a lot. I can be reached at email at info@cookforamerica.com, and we do get emails every day. We also, on our website, you'll see some press from some other media outlets, and when something like this airs, we always hear, and I always reply to all of my emails.
Very, very good. I'm glad for that. So if you have any questions at home, the email again is info@cookforamerica.com. info@cookforamerica.com. Chef Kate, I want to personally say a huge thank you for taking the time out, sitting with us at Beyond Focus TV, and definitely giving us a full one-on-one spectrum on Cook for America.
It's my pleasure, Lydia. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to wish all my Trini people happy Independence Day. So get your red, white, and black Trinidad Day. Happy, I believe it's 60 years, just over that, of independence. So go TNT. And of course, it is Labor Day weekend. So happy Labor Day if you're out this weekend. Do be safe, okay? We know the roads are a little bit hectic out there, but definitely want to be safe. Happy Labor Day, guys. We'll be back again for another episode. Same time, same place. You're watching Beyond Focus TV. Stay with us.
Beyond Focus TV show wants and needs your feedback. Did we blunder? Please let us know so we can improve. Was the show helpful to you? Drop us a note so we can share the success with our staff members. Is there something you think we could do better? We welcome new ideas and new approaches to old ideas. Do you have a great suggestion? Let us know and we'll work on it. If you would like to share your comments anonymously, please send us an email at info@beyondfocusmedia.com. If you want to get in touch with the executive producer directly, send him an email at gene@beyondfocusmedia.com. We really look forward to hearing from you.